Guys, what is going on in College Station? I mean, we're getting so many different reports about five-star players being unhappy and freshmen being suspended indefinitely from the team. And, Jimbo is basically losing control of this team at a rapid pace. It is deteriorating fast. We did a video on Texas A&M and the state of Jimbo Fisher's job like 2 or 3 weeks ago before, all this recent news came out. These days stories and everything moves so quickly. There's just been so much more news that's come out since we made that last video. But Drew, I guess we'll start with this first report. So it's basically confirmed that a bunch of players were suspended indefinitely for smoking marijuana, the devil's lettuce, in the locker room. What say you about that? What say you about the discipline of the team and the culture that he's installing where that is going on?
It's almost so hard to believe because I don't know if I've ever seen anything like this in a locker room. I mean, after a loss like this, first thing you have to think of here, when you think of good college football teams like, your Nick Saban coached Alabama teams, your Kirby Smart Georgia teams, do you think a single player on those rosters is ever going to think about smoking weed in that locker room? Them doing this to Jimbo Fisher and in the locker room is a straight up disrespect to not only him, but just to the school itself. That just shows these these players don't care about that school. They're in it for the money. They're in it because there's talent surrounded, and they think they're going to come in here and play football and just find themselves a spot in the NFL because Texas A&M is so talented across the board. Everybody was going to look good. And we made a video on this. I'm not surprised to hear reports about players doing stupid stuff and players being unhappy with Jimbo Fisher and this team. We said this a month ago. We talked about what Jimbo Fisher is, and there was Texas A&M fans in the comment section who just could not stand what we were talking about and swore up and down that we were just making up stuff and that Jimbo Fisher was the greatest coach ever. We just had to give him more time because he won a national title back in 2013 where that entire Florida State roster pretty much was going to the NFL. That Florida State team was not because of Jimbo Fisher. I mean, obviously he was the head coach. He did have some say-so and did have an impact. But it's very similar to that 2019 LSU team. Does anyone look at that 2019 LSU team, one of the greatest teams in college football history, and be like Ed Orgeron was the reason that team was so good? No. That's why you don't see many teams dying and going and bending their back and doing all this crazy stuff to get Ed Orgeron as their head coach. So,
Yeah. Well, Drew, let me ask you this. What does it say about the leaders of the team, the guys who have been there? Like, when they see that going on in the locker room, are they not saying something? Like, I'm confused. What's going on? And then for that to even get out to the media, it's like, I played in college, and I really could not imagine. I could not even fathom what my head coach would have done if that happened when I was playing. I could not imagine. The whole team would have been punished for probably like 72 hours straight. And that's just out of, like you said, respect and a little bit of fear for your coach. Like, that just shows you there's no leadership, there's no respect for Jimbo Fisher, and nobody's holding anybody accountable. I've said this phrase so many times, and it's cliche, but it's cliche because it's true. When you have a team or you're leading a business, you have the 5% of people, the leaders that are absolutely going to do everything to strive for success for the business or the team. And then you have the bottom 5% that are, smoking weed in the locker room and causing, turmoil within the team. And then you got the other 90%. That 90% is going to flow to whatever 5% has the biggest voice and the most impact. And obviously for Texas A&M, it's the negative 5% because, now we're getting reports of people are leaving, people are transferring, people are unhappy, former 5 stars. And I said this in the last video we did. Whenever you get a group of guys who come together for the money versus as wherever, if you're going to Alabama, Nick Saban's recruiting you, telling you, look, you're going to win championships here. And he's going to shape you into a young man. And I'm just using Nick Saban as an example because I think he's the epitome of what it is to turn a young man into an adult, a respectable adult through football. And, if you're not doing that with these young kids who are 17, 18 coming out of high school, they've always been the big man on campus, big fish, small pond, whatever, and you're throwing money at them, telling them they can do all this stuff. Whereas, in reality, you need to center them and humble them. And that's what it is whenever you go into on a college team as a freshman. It's a humbling experience. If you're a dominating high school player and then all of a sudden you get thrown into the deep end with all these guys who are 5, 6 years older than you've been playing college football for 4 years, It's supposed to be a humbling experience, but these players on Texas A&M are getting treated like, kings, and it's obviously showing in their behavior.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that quote up because that was exactly what I was thinking was going to say if you didn't say it. In terms of the leadership problems with that team, it's very apparent that bottom 5% has influence over the entire team. And the main question for me, I think leadership issues has always kind of been a problem with Texas A&M. I mean, you look back at all these past teams under Jimbo Fisher. I mean, you never hear anything about a player being a good leader or anything like that. I've just never seen a Jimbo Fisher-led team since that Florida State team that's had legitimately good leadership. And, whether that's from past seasons from this Texas A&M team, a lot of players just not buying into what he's saying, a lot of players just going through the motions and just playing for themselves and hoping that they could find themselves in the NFL draft and getting drafted. I just think that's the main reason people are, at Texas A&M and why a lot of these people are staying. And then I think you do have some players on that team that are just very unhappy and actually want to go win some games, and that's where you see these transfers trying to get out. Now, again, I'm not surprised that this is happening. We said it in that video. And like I said before, these people were just blowing us off and saying that's, we just don't know what we're talking about because we're young. But, we do our research. We do our research. We do a lot of research that people, obviously people that don't really know us don't get to see. And this is just what Jimbo Fisher is. And, he's using all that money to buy these recruits. And like you said, telling them these guys are going to live like kings. They're going to be able to do this and that. But there's really no emphasis on telling these kids. And it's very apparent that they're going to become better football players, that they're going to be winners, that they're going to be national champions. There's just the sense of urgency on that team. I mean, you can just kind of watch it. And I said it in the preview prediction that we just did. You can watch a football team and you can see things like effort. You can see teams with good leadership. You can see guys, when you watch teams and good defenses, all 11 players flow into the ball. You look at key things like that. And when you watch this Texas A&M team, I mean, it's just like they're going through the motions. You can tell they're very talented, and that's honestly the main reason that they haven't been getting blown out in a lot of these games. I think South Carolina could have blew this team out of the water, but I just think Texas A&M is so talented. That's what's caused them to kind of stay competitive in that game.
Yeah, they looked absolutely distraught against South Carolina. Special teams, offense, defense, they just looked flat. And like you mentioned, they got too much talent for that, and they're playing a lot of young guys on defense, and some of them have been stepping up and playing well, but even when Jimbo was at Florida State, and I love Jameis Winston, he's such a character now, but Jimbo didn't have the best grasp on Jameis Winston whenever he was coaching him at Florida State. There was a couple allegations that came out about him, so he's never been able to control players, Drew. He's never been able to do it, and if you don't look at history, you're doomed to repeat it. And he's been doing the same shit for 11 years, 12 years, but like you said, because he won that championship in 2013, it's like, if you win a national championship as a college coach, you could ride that success until you retire. As far as this buyout goes, like I saw a tweet, I don't know if it's true, but it said you could buy an island in the Bahamas, like 3 Bentleys and something else, and still have like a couple million left over instead of buying out Jimbo. So when it comes to this crazy buyout situation, I think it's like 86 or 96 million or something ridiculous like that. And we know that Texas A&M boosters, they have the money to do it. It's just, that is a big dent. I don't care who you are, just to fire a guy. So do you think that the Texas A&M boosters, this Texas A&M program, will bite the bullet and, buy out Jimbo?
Well, it's hard to tell. Obviously me and you don't have any connections with the Texas A&M boosters, so it's really hard to know what they're thinking behind the scenes and all that. Now, if it was up to us I'm looking at the situation now. You get all these recruits. A lot of these recruits are unhappy. Just the overall unhappiness with this Texas A&M team. If you do this buyout and you're sending a lot of money, I mean, you're going to have to expect some more poor seasons after this. And I don't know. I think the Texas A&M fans and the boosters were wanting success immediately. They don't want to wait any longer. This is a Texas A&M team that's always had legitimate talent on the team. And other than that COVID year and maybe a year under Johnny Manziel, this Texas A&M team has not been taken serious in terms of playoff contenders. You always get these playoff, preseason rankings that have came out and had Texas A&M way at the top. But of course, we all know they never live up to it. So I think the boosters are getting a little impatient. I think the fans are getting a little impatient with just the lack of success with having this great talent. If I'm the boosters and I really am trying to think of the future of the program, I think you do it. You know, if you have the money, I think you got to get this guy out. I mean, just look at the situation. I mean, if you stick with this guy for another year or two, this is what you're going to get. This is exactly what Jimbo Fisher is, and this is exactly what Texas A&M has been for the past few years. So if I'm the boosters, I think you got to pull the trigger and do it. I really do. You know, me and you have been talking about Jimbo Fisher for quite some time now. We've never been high on him as a head coach. Although he does get the recruits in, at the end of the day, you got to do something with it. I guarantee you, at Georgia, if Kirby Smart gets all these recruiting classes, and to this day, he's still having 8-win seasons, Kirby Smart would have been gone. The fans would have ran him out of town, and he would have never been seen again. So, you know, I think Jimbo's honestly pretty lucky to still be here in this situation, but I think it's time to move on. You have to move on.
Yeah, I agree. You know, time, like, just everything happens so fast these days. You know, people are as impatient as ever, and, like, you saw, like, I don't know if I already said this, but it's like rolling a snowball down a mountain. It's just going to keep building and building and building and building. And that's exactly what's happening now. Like, it started with one player suspended, and then you hear a couple of freshmen are suspended, and then you hear why they're suspended. And now all of a sudden, all these former 5-star players are coming out saying they're unhappy. So what's going to happen in a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks at the end of the season when they haven't won another game? Like, how is this team going to stay together when they're already falling apart? So, you know, I agree with you. I think it's better to just blow it up now and go ahead and get it behind you, because things move so fast these days. You know, if you get a guy in that at least can just turn things around a little bit, just instill some hope into this program, you know, maybe it'll be for the better.
Yeah, and you know, you look at the rest of Texas A&M schedule. So currently the record's 3-4. I even said, you know, when we did that first video, I was talking in the comments and I'm like, okay, enjoy an 8-4 season. Well, I'm here to tell you right now, 8-4 is not happening anymore. It's not happening. You got Ole Miss, Florida, Auburn, UMass, and LSU. You better hope you beat Florida and Auburn. That's all I'm gonna say. You lose one of those games, you're losing to Ole Miss. I can tell you that right now. Florida and Auburn are 50-50. UMass you'll win, and
well,
then LSU.
Dude, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I've said this in the Florida-Georgia preview prediction. I think Florida's an underrated team. Their defense isn't great. I think Florida beats the shit out of them. I think they beat Auburn because Auburn's in turmoil, and Texas A&M just has more talent. But there's only 1 or 2 wins in the remaining games on their schedule.
Yeah, and you know, 6-6 is definitely not what Texas A&M boosters and fans are hoping for. Like I said, you keep them around, this is what you're going to get, especially with these recruits leaving. It might only get worse from here. We said it in the video we did a month ago. But 6-6 is honestly pretty likely for this Texas A&M team. I think it'd be a miracle if this team went 8-4. I really do.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for this video, guys. You know, please let us know down below in the comment section your thoughts on this whole deal and what you guys think about Jimbo Fisher. If Texas A&M fans are still supporting this guy, then I don't know what to tell you guys anymore. I mean, if you're happy with 8-4, 7-5, and 6-6, and by all means, this is your guy right here, straight up. This is your guy. But please leave a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. All those things help us out tremendously. And that's going to do it for this one, guys. We'll see you in the next one.